everybody, welcome back. We are getting in the final stages of the refit of this machine. This will probably be the last video, and then once this, I got the cover to put on, or the enclosure, excuse me, and after that I just need to go through all my tools and set the tool height in the Mach 3 software. But I figured I would do a recap on the things that I've done and what makes this basically final. I started out with, I haven't connected it yet, but I have a shielded Ethernet cable here. I just got to take time to take my console apart to get into the computer in order to swap this cable out. I'm going to keep this cable ran, so I have extra potential signal cables, and I can cut the end off of here. I have my couple extras. I have 4 extra leads here. I have them tied up so that for potential switches being used out in the console. Moving over to here, I added my 24 volt pneumatic solenoid for the blow down for when the tool does a tool change, and as it's in its macro setting, it activates the blow down to clear the chips from potentially being lodged up into the collet itself. I have connected the 12 volt light. I found that it was cheaper just to buy a DIN rail power supply and connect it, because the light is actually fairly bright, and then the light bulbs are fairly inexpensive. So I have since put a DIN rail power supply in, wired a switch out to the console, so this 12 volt power supply only handles the light that's in there. I ended up having to do some wire rerouting since I went through and changed all of these solenoid coils out to 24 volts. I completely got rid of my RF problem by putting RF chokes on nearly everything that was AC voltage, but I felt that I needed to try to remove some of the AC voltage out of this electronics chassis. So I was able to obtain some new coils at a fairly reasonable price. So I added all 24 volt coils in here, along with this one's 24 volts. So I had to reconfigure the power inputs to the M26. So that covers that. I don't know if I've covered it in the previous video, but I do have my stack light mounted and installed. That's also wired into the M26, and the brain is enabled to use the stack light itself. I went through, and you've seen in the previous video where I noted the pop-ups being really fast and jarring the tool and the thing. I ended up purchasing some flow valve controls so I can control the flow to it. So I got them at a moderate speed now, and the tools don't jump nearly as bad when it actually cycles the tool. So that was a nice addition. So that even though once this machine is up and running, I'm going to start producing a turret, like a 10 tool turret. So a lot of these solenoids may go away once that new system is done. I added a fan, a cooling fan to blow air inward, and then I have a screen for the outer. There's a screen on the bottom, the cage to protect anything from falling down in there. So that's all mounted, and I just wired it directly into, there was extra ports right here on the 24 volt power supply, so that's pre-wired in. The power supply over here on the side, I replaced it simply because I was not liking how the wiring was really, it was actually pretty crushed behind the other power supply, and it was real thick, so it was pushing really hard up against these Ethernet cables that come in for the actual encoders, or from the motor drivers. So I ended up getting a bigger one and put it in here because it was pretty thin profile. The difference in price between one similar and this much bigger one was nearly the same. The bonus was this one has a temperature controller in it to turn the fan on and off, which was what more preferable to me. The other one seemed kind of loud with the fan running all the time. And the bonus was I was able to gain about 25 or 50, I have to remember what I have set up in there, more inches per minute as far as function with the actual inches per minute on the motors themselves. So made the machine a little bit faster. So, and this one here is the 600 watt, still 24 volt, and it's the mean well power supply, same as what I had in there previous. So now I'm going to stop the video, bring it around. I've already put the motor enclosures on here, and I've ran also, I meant to add that in here. I had to put a splitter in here. I ran another hose up here, and inside there was an open port. So I connected an air line with a spray nozzle that'll stay in the machine, so it's dedicated to the machine. So now I have access to a spray nozzle to be able to blow any chips off or anything like that during its any kind of procedures of making parts in there. So anyways, I'll stop the video, we'll come around, I'll show you what the front's looking like. Alrighty, we are back with the front of the machine. Just a little overview. Here is the light, and I have a console push button to turn that on. My air hose comes in. I have a shut-off valve, and I use some 1/4-inch line, and I'll probably get a magnet hook or something so I can hang this inside here, but I'm able to reach anywhere I needed on the machine. Inside the machine, it has the strainer trays. I'll probably take the camera off the mount here and I'll show you what the strainer trays look like. But those are all mounted in. The coolant pump cover is in. I've added my coolant system. This is the Flow Lock, I believe is the name of the company. It's an American-made company that makes a coolant nozzle kit, and it has all these jets on it, or nozzles, and it makes a complete circle. But I removed the segment out of the front just so I made sure I had clearance for my tool changer. So it's on this side and over here, and you can twist them to the angles to point it, but I haven't really, I kind of eyeball set it up until I actually have coolant running through it so I can see where they hit, and then I can dial it in a little bit more. This may be temporary until I can machine me a much nicer one, or if it works for me, I'll leave it and we'll go from there. In the future, this is a spindle lock. I may use this in the future, I'm not sure, but it's pneumatic. And what it does, there's a machined curvature on the end of the little shaft that's on the ram. And when you activate it, it pushes against the belt and the pulley on the spindle and locks the spindle, keeps it from moving. So I may have a function for that in the future. I'm not sure yet. I've added my blowdown. I'll show that a little bit more in detail when I take the camera down. But I made it out of refrigerant grade 1/4-inch copper, and I made another mount in the back that's similar to this one, and it has like a angled piece of copper, and on the copper I drilled the holes at a down angle, and then I soldered a piece of brass to it as a diffuser plate. So the air nozzles shoot down at the plate, and then the plate diffuses it across the opening of that. I have all the motor enclosures sealed, at least for the X and the Y. The Z you don't worry about. These are all sealed. I was waiting on, I didn't have enough bellows when I bought the machine from the fellow. He sent me 3 extra bellows that he had, and those worked fine. I got them installed, but I was still short one, and it was for here on the Y-axis. And I found a company in China. He makes them to order, and they're very nice. I ordered 4, so I have a complete set. If I wanted to change them all out, I could have. But you give him the specs, and he makes them, and they're fairly reasonable. I think for all 4 of them, it was, with shipping, it was like $120, and that's 4 new sets of bellows on there. And it's really a nice grade material that he uses to make them. So anyways, I'll show you what that one. that's the one there. And then, like I said, these are all OEM, I believe, and they were still in really great shape, so I left them as they are. The pop-ups, I'll show you what the pop-ups are, on how slow they are. See, they're much nicer now, much smoother, rather than jumping up and down. So it still jumps a little bit, but I can probably go back and reprint where my hooks were much tighter, but I think I'm going to leave it for right now because, as I stated before, I plan to make a turret style tool changer, simply because this tool changer takes up almost 4 inches of table space, and it shorts me nearly 4 inches of machining space on this table. So theoretically I have like 9 inches of machining ability on the table. That's it. So I'm going to most likely get this off of here as quickly as possible. And with the enclosure on, I just got to figure out how I need to mount it in there. Other than that, that is the end of this. Hey everybody, the enclosure is on. The covers are bolted on, and I can't keep it secret, but I did some machining before I actually shot this video, so you can probably see some of the chips up in the window. This is totally a fun little machine. You know, I've never had a machine with full enclosure and tool changer and you know, coolant system enclosed. It made it really nice. I don't have chips all over my floor, especially when I do the manual mill. Even when that one was CNC, you know, the chips would get flung everywhere. So I'm super happy with this machine, how it came out. I'm going to see if I can able to zoom back a little bit. I'm waiting on, I have a small wireless keyboard with a scratch pad mouse style on it to have as a backup on here. I still have the keyboard plugged in, so I got the back cover still off of this. I also have a wireless hand pendant MPG coming, so I'm gonna before I close that all up, I'm gonna wait for those items to show up so I can put the wireless dongles into the PC that's inside that box. And as you can see, chips all over. I did a little bit of machining. That's the inside of it, and you'll see that I do have a decent amount of real estate up here in this area, so I can put probably a 10 tool rotary style changer in here, so I can remove that to gain the actual table space and machining space. Just so you know, that is a 3-inch by 4-inch toolmaker's vise. I have another style vise that I'm going to put in there because that one, I like it to a point, but it doesn't have where you can put soft jaws in it. So that'll be coming back out, and we'll have some soft jaws or another vise that I can, a Kurt style vise that I can put in there for having soft jaws. When I made this cover, I don't know if I covered it earlier, I'm assuming that this drawbar assembly is not the original drawbar for this machine, simply because it was too tall to put this cover on, so I 3D printed basically shim plates to put underneath it, and had to get some longer screws that screwed this on, so I had the clearance for the Z-axis to go all the way up. So that was pretty simple. Luckily I have a large format 3D printer, and we're all good. I bought some of these little magnets at Harbor Freight, and it comes in a pack of 4 or whatever, and I have my air hose hanging off inside there, so it's nice and clear and out of the way. So that little giant coolant pump pushes the fluid out of this thing. Wow, it floods it in here. I'm super happy with it. I was talking with Sam over at CNC4 RX7. We've been talking quite a bit over the phone. he had mentioned about getting a strainer or filter to put in line, which I'm going to do. Inside here, I don't know if you can see it, but you know, there's all the chip debris that gets on there. But on the back side, that's the cover, and you might be able to see it in this picture, but I put a piece of rubber strip down on the bottom edge of that blue cover right there, because it was a gap and it was letting some of the chips get in here inside. I mean, and the pump is a submersible pump, so there's no like inlet, you know, there's no like hose inlet or anything like that. It's literally you set the pump inside the coolant, and that's its own thing, and it has a really coarse strainer on it. So I have gotten, I think, a couple little pieces in here, because one of the nozzles, these are really small, they're probably like 16th inch, maybe a little bit bigger on as far as the outlet tube, and one of them is trickling, so I'm assuming that it's got a piece of trash in there. So I bought a 100 micron mesh strainer that's inline, and I will tap into the bottom where it comes in there and apply that. I don't want to mount it to this. I don't want to add more weight to the Z-axis, so it'll be down there. So that hose follows up and down with the Z-axis, so I'll put it in line so it won't affect the Z-axis at this point. And then the bottom one screws out and allows you to clean any debris out of there, so that'll help with that. Other than that, and then also on the back side, let me see if I can get a video on here. You can see the trim strips around, because the coolant just washes from the table down this way, and I noticed I was getting a drip down off of this corner here. So what I'm thinking is that I need to make something. I don't want to glue it, because I don't want to have to deal with cutting glue or anything if I have to remove this top. So I'm gonna, being that this is all steel, I may use a piece like that magnet paper adhesive stuff they make, like magnet refrigerator cards and stuff, but you can get a full sheet of it, and I might put that on here and then have an overhang to help with the coolant not being able to run right down the edge and go through that crack and making the stuff drip out of here. It's not pouring out, but it is dripping, and I don't want to nip that pretty quick. For the rest of it, and I may put like a rubber pad or some kind of thing right here, because you know, going through all the time, I'm just gonna rip up the paint over time. So I'm gonna put some kind of shielding over this. Before I put all the covers on, I put an actual neoprene seal on all the edges, so when it bolted together, I got a nice seal all the way around. This one's not leaking, and it has the seal goes all the way around, because as you can see, so here the x-axis retracts inside that pocket inside this case here. So new windows. The only window I didn't replace was the door. I just polished it up with some plastic polish, and then of course I have the cover back on. Sorry. I got some caps I need to plug these holes, so I'll get these caps plugged in. Here's the back side with that cover on. As you can see, that was exposed. And then I have my stack light. I'll mount it on here. I added a fan, so it's pulling cool air through the bottom here, and it discharges it over here on the side. So it just keeps some kind of fresh air moving in there. Other than that, that pretty much wraps this thing up. I'm ready to start making some more parts with it. I'm super excited with it. I hope you enjoyed the video series on here. If you find yourself obtaining one of these little Benchmans, good luck with it. You know, it's a fantastic little machine for the purpose that I have for it at this point. It's going to fulfill the needs that I have. I may eventually outgrow it, I don't know. If I do, then I'll move this one along to somebody else that could use it and move myself into something a little bit bigger. But anyways, thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe, and we will see you on the next videos. See ya.